Hi there, my name is Matt Cole.
And I'm Brian Garrity.
And we are the producers of the Sexperts podcast. And we have two very special out-of-town guests. They are not from the Hampton Roads area, as far as I know. But welcome, comedians from Here We Are podcast, Shane Mauss and Dave Waite. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Here We Are podcast is mine.
Oh, that's yours.
It's a science podcast.
There you go.
And Dave has zero part in it. We used to. Dave and I used to have a podcast together. No, he doesn't. But it's not for him.
Yeah, we're calling you out today.
He's not allowed. He's not allowed to listen to it. But we used to have a podcast together called the Riff Board.
Riff.
Oh, cool.
And we just did. We riffed on dumb ideas and did silly characters. And
Awesome.
You're gonna be right at home.
A lot about dicks. I feel like we've been preparing for this show
Forever.
for
That's
a very
awesome.
long time.
I'm confused though. You used to have podcasts end?
Yeah, do podcasts ever end? What happened?
We lived together.
Oh.
And then we stopped living together. So we broke up. We broke the gang up.
Brian-
I got a girlfriend. It was a real Yoko Ono situation.
Riff. Come back, man. I can't riff on my own.
Was one of you ref, one of you bored?
No, it was every time Dave said something silly around the house. Basically, like I was just like, you should put that in your stand-up, and he'd never write it down, so I just started writing it down instead, and then I asked him to recreate moments around the dirtbag house that we used to live in, and it was a good time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, talk to us about your current podcast then.
So my current podcast is called Here We Are. We just had episode 200 last month. I in my travels, I've been a touring comedian for 12 years.
Nice.
And so the last 4.5 years in most cities I go to, I look up a scientist in that city to ask them about their research. It's a lot of psychology, sociology, biology, a lot of like why we behave the way that we do, a lot of behavioral economics, why we spend money in the way that we do, evolution, like how we got here, how our psychology evolved over time. A lot of those things that are. It's meant to be a little more kind of relevant to an individual's life. So we don't really talk about like physics so much or like chemistry, like the very big and the very small that don't really affect someone's day to day. So that's kind of the premise of the podcast. I'm currently doing a tour called Stand Up Science, which Dave is joining me on at the moment, which is a tour that I'm doing indefinitely because it's a show that changes each time. The show is, I host it, and it's me, a second comedian, and two scientists on each show. And so I warm up the crowd with some science jokes, and then I have a scientist give like kind of a TED Talk-ish kind of thing about their research. And then I have, in this case, Dave, sometimes a local comic in a city, usually kind of doing a little more of their cerebral material. I mean, Dave has plenty of cerebral material. He doesn't always showcase it. I like that you could just tell by looking at Dave.
Well, I was there last night.
That was such an insulting look that you just gave him. I said cerebral material. You
Like,
both are like, this guy, really? What is it? The Grateful Dead? Is it the jacket? What's
For me, it was the material that I saw last night.
You must not watch a lot of comedy. I feel like my comedy's still not heady, but it's not like the standard.
I would say
It wasn't dumb. But it wasn't science.
I would say
it wasn't science.
No. That's to be clear. I don't ask any of the comics to do science material. I just because there's not a lot of comics out there with science material, and the ones that have it, some of it's not that great. I just asked them to do like kind of their more cerebral stuff. So
Awesome.
they did some pretty woke set last night.
I agree. I didn't mean to belittle it.
Fuck you, Brian.
And then I have another academic, which last night they were sick, so instead Dave and I riffed on their slides. I still had their slides emailed to me. But that's why I booked 2 academics in case one of them is sick. That was the first time it happened, was last night.
Oh shit!
And then all 4 of us get on stage at the end for a Q&A with the audience that I kind of moderate. In the Q&A, there's a lot of fun improvisation, and the academics are like really shine in the Q&A usually as well. They're super knowledgeable when it comes to people's questions and everything. And so usually people ask really great questions. We had one show a few nights ago that we had just about the dumbest questions I've ever had during stand-up science.
Do you want to
Shane
call it
had a psychedelic documentary. It's coming out.
It's called Psychonautics.
So there's still like some of those fans, from his older catalog. When a band comes out with something new and there's people like, play the hit, and he's like, nah, I'm not playing the hit. This is the new stuff. And they're like, oh, come on, talking about tripping, dude. And you're like, nah, this is evolution, baby. Come on, catch up.
That was a solid riff, bro. Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Where were the academics from last night? Where are they from? From ODU?
ODU, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my alma
There was only
mater.
1 out of 2 that showed. Or the other was sick, but the one
I
that
don't know
came
where
was,
the other person was from. I
not
kind of
from
forget
ODU?
it. It was the oceanic scientist, the one that was sick. From eating shellfish.
Oh.
That's ironic. Yeah.
What got
Trying
you,
to save the ocean. Ocean's trying to kill her.
what got
that
you
was
interested
great,
in
yeah.
all this stuff? What was like
Marijuana.
marijuana?
Well, it's a very long story. Early, I don't really even have time for it. Early on, like my religious upbringing backfired when I was a kid, and that got me into
Same here.
learning about evolution and physics, so I could argue with people about where the universe came from and how we are here. And so those 2 things were interests of mine early on. And midway through my career, I started touring internationally. And internationally, they do a lot of themed shows. And I was thinking, like, what would my theme be?
That's awesome.
And I kind of landed on the science stuff. A lot of stuff happened. I was in the middle of a new relationship and went through a bad breakup. And I was writing a lot of relationship material at the same time that I was getting high and watching a lot of Animal Planet. And I was interested in I found a lot of parallels in their mating behavior to my own situations.
I fuck like that.
And so I just started looking into it quite a bit. And that got me really deep into evolutionary psychology and biology, a lot of like why we're attracted to the things that we are and how those preferences evolved, and just kind of blew my mind, changed the way that I looked at the world, and reached out to scientists and eventually made a podcast about it.
There you go.
and somehow landed in Norfolk.
Yes.
Finally. I mean, I've been hitting you guys up for years, and I won't the number of times that you rejected my appearance, but I finally you knock on the door enough times, and it opens up.
Speaking of sex and we're not to the podcast yet, the actual part. But speaking of sex and animals, do you know about the echidna, the animal?
It sounds familiar.
This guy, so Sonic, the game, Knuckles was an echidna. So I don't know if you know that, but an echidna has like 1 like shaft and 4 dick heads. Mm-hmm. It's I mean, it sounds fucking made up, but it'll blow your mind, and like it may induce
There's weirder things than that out there.
Yeah, isn't that crazy though?
But yeah,
Bringing your own bukkake party.
yeah.
4 echidnas at 16 dicks, basically. My math is right.
Without knowing echidna, anything about echidna mating, it's possible. A lot of times, usually the rule of thumb is that the more promiscuous a female is in a given species, the more sophisticated the male genitalia is.
Holy shit.
And that sounds like pretty sophisticated male genitalia, so I would say that the female's probably fairly promiscuous, And a lot of times when that's the case, they have some sort of like obstacle course set up inside them and their fallopian tubes and whatnot, and reaching their ovaries.
Ducks are infamous for that, right?
So that's why they have the corkscrew penis, because the ladies have which is strange for a bird to have a penis because it's not aerodynamic. But
they usually have cloacas.
Ducks, super rapey. Right? Most birds do. They just have a hole and they kind of press them together. It's called a coital kiss.
This is great.
But yeah, I would guess that the lady has like multiple compartments that she stores the sperm, and that's why 4 penis heads, so you can like shoot in different directions. Cover all your bases, just the shotgun spread.
Shotgun spread.
But I have no idea if that's right or not. That's just
that is so fascinating.
Something like that I would predict.
And all this stuff, did you look up on your own, or did you come across it over time, like talking with all these academics and stuff?
I've read tons of books about this kind of stuff. I once read like a 400-page book on insect vaginas. So like that's just the kind of stuff, and it was like a real sciencey read too. It was like not an easy pop culture read. It was like real technical, and so yeah, I know a lot of strange things about genitalia in the animal kingdom.
Well, where would people go to find out your dates for your upcoming shows?
Shane Mauss, MAUSS.com. You can follow me at Shane Comedy on Twitter, Shane Comedy Fan on Facebook. I don't know what my Instagram is. I think it's Shane Mauss Comedy. Do you know what my Instagram is by chance, Dave?
I don't know. Stand-up science?
Do you know where you follow, right?
I think it's.
I do. I think it's just Shane Mauss
Comedy.
Shane Mauss.
Someone runs it for me. I should really. No, I'm not going to. I'm not going to. Social media kind of ruined my life for a little while there. But here we are, podcast.com. People can learn more. Dave, where can people find out more about where you're at?
Well, I got DaveWaiteComedy.com, and I'm on Instagram.
Waite.
That's true.
I heard you're huge on Instagram, like doing a lot of videos.
I'm doing a lot of videos, but I need to grow that follower base.
Well, you're about to grow it by 1, bro.
Yeah, please follow me.
Actually, 2. I'll have the podcast account.
What's the new thing you're doing? I haven't seen the new art museum.
It's called Dave on Art, and then I just go to art museums and riff on paintings. Just give my hot take. A lot of times, if there's a picture of boobs or a painting of boobs, I always get a picture of those or film it, and I'm like, titties. And
you get a selfie with you chubbed up in there.
Did you go to the Chrysler while you were here? Chrysler Museum of Art?
I didn't have time.
Shit. You got to come back.
I went to the Museum of Virginia Fine Arts the other day in Richmond.
Nice.
That was pretty good.
We couldn't get a decent Airbnb here, so we got a crappy hotel. It was all the cleaning fees. It was like $120 cleaning fees at like any Airbnb with a crazy service fee on top of it.
Yeah.
It was like doubling the. Is this like a party city,
or is it a lot of people coming to visit their family in the military?
I have no idea. I've never looked for an Airbnb here.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. People visiting their family military. And also, we're sinking.
Bizarre.
So, I don't know.
We're sinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Global warming. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for being on the podcast.
We're being a podcast.
Yeah.
It's all a podcast.
What if we're all trapped inside of a podcast? Oh shit.
All right. We're on to the episode. Thank you. Bye-bye.